Wind bosses? Really? Come on, we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel here, guys. Like, it's just a bunch of air. How can it possibly hurt people on the...
Jesus Christ!
Even the very substance you breathe can be weaponized in the wrong hands. I know what I said earlier, but now it makes more sense. A gentle breeze can feel cool and refreshing, but a gale or a tornado can rip apart anything in its path. So yeah, weaponizing it is kind of dangerous. Not gonna lie though, finding enough wind-themed bosses was a bit of a challenge because a majority of our candidates only had, like, one wind attack. Like, really? Thankfully, we made it a lot easier by incorporating a few rules, such as how they rock the air-based aesthetic, or more importantly, how they use the wind and dare to attack you. We'd also like to take into account flying and sound, since neither can really exist without the wind. So let's get to it, and hopefully this list will feel like a breath of fresh...
No! Breath of the Wild. On a wind bosses list. My career is skyrocketing, ladies and gentlemen.
Infuriating puns aside, this gives me a chance to discuss one of the most interesting bosses in the Zelda series, the Blight Ganons. In Breath of the Wild, Calamity Ganon, the newest incarnation of Mr. Or else you will die himself, spawned 4 phantom beasts to possess the divine beasts and bring chaos to Hyrule. Each blight is powered by a specific element: water, thunder, fire, and our personal pick, of course, wind. Already, you can tell Wind Blight Ganon is more than just a pretty face with its glowing blue eye and enormous cannon for a right arm. It's also a bit of a cheater. One thing you should know before diving in, Wind Blight does have a weak spot.
It's the eyes! The eyes!
It's one glowing blue eye. Shoot it. Just shoot at it and you can stun the Linky Beast and chip away at him with your Master Sword. Of course, Blighty won't make it easy on you. It uses distance to its advantage by floating in midair. This means you can't reach it on your own, while it's free to use its cannon to fire blue energy bolts and even hurricanes at you. And that's just the first phase. Come phase 2, it releases 4 drones that help redirect its attacks and make them even harder to predict, meaning your best bet is to keep moving. Don't give it a chance to find an opening, cause one way or another, it's gonna find one. But yes, the main reason why Windblight's at the bottom of the list is because while it's got the right moves, the air motif is a little on the lacking side. That, and like I said, it's kind of a cheater. But on the other hand, that makes knocking it down to earth all the more satisfying. I'm actually okay with that pun. Too bad they're only gonna get worse. There aren't a whole lot of flying type gym leaders in the Pokemon world, and to be honest, most of them really aren't that special. Winona's pretty bland, and Falkner's weak as heck. But then there's Skyla, the high-flying girl, and honestly, she's the best of the 3. Her grandfather is a legendary pilot, and she herself is an active pilot, and she isn't ashamed to show off her love for flying. She dresses in a sky blue aerodynamic suit, she wears a tiny propeller in her hair, heck, she owns a freaking airport. Even her personality matches to boot. She's a little airheaded, but she's also very passionate and uplifting. Yeah, more puns is gonna be one of those countdowns. But in this case, they perfectly fit with her and how dedicated she is to the craft. Speaking of, there's also her gym in Mistralton City. It's modeled after a military hangar, which I respect even more because gotta give it up to our boys in the air. Not only that, it alternates between the original Black and White and their sequels. In the original games, you maneuver your way around by climbing into cannons that send you flying into the air, whereas in Black 2 and White 2, the whole gym becomes a wind tunnel that literally blows you away, forcing you to strategize to get past the strong currents. Once you make your way across the obstacles to Skyla, it's battle time, and she does not mess around. She designed her team specifically with moves that focus on speed, meaning they'll likely hit first and hit hard. Oh, and they're immune to ground type moves, so you can't spam Earthquake on them. That would be a problem. If ice, electricity, and rock types weren't able to swat her winged beauties out of the sky, they might even take the time to explain that at the entrance. I mean, it's a nice touch for those still relatively new to the franchise, but seems redundant to a Pokemon expert. I don't think we've ever talked about Astral Chain on this channel before, so allow me to give a brief summary. In the not too distant future, humanity is almost completely wiped out as the world is ravaged by interdimensional beasts known as chimeras. To combat them, the police task force Neuron, which includes us, the protagonist, and our twin sibling, arm themselves with living weapons called legions to face the threat head on. And we're gonna need all the help we can get. These chimeras are beastly and dangerous in their own distinct way, and the more wager ones take a piece out of Greek mythology, including our chimera of choice for this list, Kaleno. Named after one of the Pleiades from Greek mythology, Kaleno literally translates to the Dark One. Fitting title since this humanoid bird of prey is mostly dark with an eerie red glow. Almost looks like an anthropomorphic Yveltal. The minute it literally swoops in, you know you're in for a rough time. It's really fast and spends most of its time hovering just above you, so landing a hit is going to be tough. It can dive bomb you, fire projectiles at you, and even create mini wind tornadoes to blow you away. Or still, once you damage it enough, it'll drag you to the astral plane, its home turf, where it gets a little help from its chimera buddies. You gotta take out these flying pests before it's truly safe for you to deal with the bigger flying pests, and they get annoying really fast. Truth be told, the boss fight with Kaleno is more long and tedious than hard, especially once you hit the astral plane with all the other chimera buzzing about. But with the right legion on your side, you'll be able to clip its wings within time. Regardless, Kaleno is still a cool, cryptic-looking boss to give us a sample of what Astral Chain has to offer. Hopefully you can look at the others in the future. Might as well get this old chestnut out of the way.
I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in.
Meet Huff and Puff, a giant cloud monster and one of Bowser's minions in Paper Mario. Based on his color scheme, I'm kinda convinced he's a smog cloud. Would be fitting since his master plan was to completely cover flower fields. But when someone,
And I prefer to remain nameless,
disrupts his plan, he's prepared to bring on the storm. Literally. Already taking on the monstrous cumulonimbus is gonna put you through the ringer since you're on his turf, the sky. He primarily uses wind to blow us on our butts, and attacking Huff and Puff is also a risky move because for every hit, he summons a Tough Puff, his tiny cloud minions and children, I think? I kinda hope not because he gains the HP he lost by eating them.
Eating babies is not cool.
Joking aside, he can also use his Tough Puffs to gang up on us, and we'll have to wiggle our way to freedom. Other than that, Huff and Puff can also body slam us or charge himself up to strike us down with a lightning attack. Honestly, with how tough that attack is, it probably could have landed him a spot on our lightning bosses list, but it's kind of his only lightning move, so yeah. Meanwhile, he's got the power of wind on his side to spare. He commands the wind, uses the wind to heal. Heck, he is the wind. Probably the only reason Huff and Puff is so low on this list is that there really isn't anything special about him character-wise, just a sentient monstrous cloud. However, his battle strategy, mastery of the air, and the fact that this fight takes place in the sky make him a worthy contender as a boss. Mega Man is almost pretty cut and dry when it comes to its elemental bosses. Fire and ice bosses in particular are almost too obvious as to which ones are the best. Yet despite that, there's a surprising amount of great wind bosses across the series, a lot of which have great designs and creative boss fights. Ironically enough, the one they call Windman fell short of his peers. On top of a boring design, his fight is kind of standard and not all too exciting, but that's only the original version. How does the .exe version fare?
Oh my.
Oh, well, that's a redesign! Windman.exe is a net navi you encounter in the Red Sun version of Battle Network 4. He's operated by a girl named Lily, an opponent you face on the Eagle Tournament. In his home of Scissor Island, he's revered as a god, as his ability to cast vicious storms across the net is beyond compare.
I don't know about you, but that sounds like the perfect partner for an accidental alcoholic.
Yeah, Lily, being the nervous wreck that she is, keeps drinking from her gourd, not realizing it's spiked with rice wine. This leads to some hilarious shenanigans with her setting Windman a breeze and letting his power go out of control. Once you calm the storm, however, you make up with Windman and set off to battle him in the tournament. As you engage the man in turbinal clad, he automatically sets a wind effect on the field, which he can shift to either blow you to the back or pull you to the front. This makes a lot of his standard attacks really tricky to dodge, which includes throwing spinners, summoning a flock of birds, and hurling a flurry of twisters at you. It gets even more challenging in the Omega version of the fight, as he spits out his attacks faster than usual, making them that much harder to dodge. It's here where the devastating effects of that windstorm really start to show. There are some ways to keep you on guard, of course. Having invisible chips can keep you resistant against the wind hazards, and access to chips like air hockey and Vulcan should help you deal sufficient damage based on the distance he keeps you in. Beating Windman is a pretty rewarding experience, especially since you're gifted with the Wind Soul. Pretty fun double soul that gives you immunity to all panel hazards and provides an attack boost for your wind chips. Heck, it even removes enemy barriers. Talk about a blowout. There is one problem with Windman, however, which mainly stems from the game itself. Battle Network 4 randomizes the opponents you fight with each playthrough of the game. Because of that, there's a chance you won't even get to fight Windman on your first run. So you may or may not have to deal with the game's migraine-inducing series of New Game Plus before you can score the roulette. Should you get to fight him though, I can assure you that's a very worthwhile battle and one of the highlights of the Wind bosses and Battle Network's bosses as a whole. I've talked about the Ys series over on Disturbing Songs and Non-Horror, but for those who don't know, it's a niche action JRPG series that has good bosses and good music to accompany it. The series has been around for a while though, so long that it keeps changing battle systems like it's a KH game. Ys 7 was the first game in the series to use a party-based system. Instead of playing through the whole game as the titular character Adol, you have a full party to mess around with and kill giant monsters with. That's good because some of these guys are up there. In the second half of the game, Adol and his friends need to travel around the kingdom to gain the powers of the 5 elemental dragons. And these dragons love to test you by throwing themselves at you with crazy boss fights. And since we're talking about it, there is a wind dragon, and he's a big boy. He's like a lung going up against a ribcage because it's full of air, or a hot air balloon dragon. And we're going with the second one. Anyways, Wind Dragon. Mu-Anti is the boss of the Wind Sanctum, and he's most likely the third dragon that you fight. With his title, he attacks you with a variety of wind attacks, including shockwaves made by batting you with his wings, spinning on the ground, and ground pounding. Yep, he ground pounds wind. He can spit out homing wind bullets, eat you like he's the parasite cage from Kingdom Hearts, a lot of that here, launch a super large wind beam at you if you don't hit a DPS check, and stab you with his ribcage. The guy moves around a lot, so you will need long-range characters like Mashera to reach him while he is in the air or goes on the other side of the arena. Be careful if he is in the air though, as he can suck in party members with his tail and deal constant wind damage while you're near it. Luckily, he doesn't have any unique tricks like the other dragons. What you see is what you get. Dodge well, time your attacks, listen to the awesome boss music, and you'll take him down eventually. Mu-Anti starts the entries where we start to see wind not only used as a theme, but as an actual force that can devastate you if you aren't careful. Keep your wits about you with this guy, and the others on this list, lest you get blown away.
I'm impressed with myself. Got this far without making that specific joke.
Monster Hunter again! And you know what that means? We gotta talk about the Elder Dragons! These guys' whole thing is that they're embodiments of nature given form. Teostra is a raging inferno, Namiel is a waterfall followed by beautiful colors, and Lunastra is the living embodiment of a living pain in the butt. Hey, tell me I'm wrong! Anyways, with wind as our focus, let's talk about the elder who best embodies wind, the metallic dragon, Kushala Teostra. Before I go on, Rise fans might be looking at me and asking why I don't put in Ibushi. Well, while Ibushi is a wind dragon and uses wind in his attacks, Kushala has been doing longer and better since the beginning. I mean, can Ibushi breathe smaller twisters that become larger ones when they collide? Does he have a natural wind barrier that knocks back hunters on their butt? Can he combine his wind with an Arctic environment to launch a combined wind and ice deluge of pain on hunters who lack good ice resistance? Yeah, I didn't think so. Kushala really is the whole package when it comes to wind. While as a force of wind, he is the best elder for the job, but his actual boss battle can be annoying depending on what monster hunter you fight him in. To save time, let's look at the fights in World and Rise specifically. World's fight shows off Kushala's wind abilities to its max with a strong wind barrier and giant tornadoes that can impede you. It works a bit too well. Without a max windproof skill, it's hard to hit Kushala at all. You need to dance around the tornadoes that he summons or wait till they dissipate. Same with the wind barrier. You need to target the tail or head to hit him well. If you can position the tornadoes well and get a barring on the timing for his attacks though, the fight becomes much more manageable and a great challenge to hunters. Rise's fight is a lot easier as he doesn't use wind barrier and focuses more on range attacks than using arena trapping. Of course, this could change in Rise's upcoming expansion, but a welcome change still. Honestly, Kushala's varied difficulty is why he isn't higher on the list. But no matter where you fight him, he's still a powerful force and a strong challenge to any hunter trying to prove their worth.
A cyborg German commando with wind turbines for arms. If that doesn't sound like the most awesome boss fight to you, you're probably right, but you're close to being wrong.
Third stage of Mad World has you riding your bike through the Red Line Way while tearing down mooks on their own death rides. Once you reach the end of it, you're introduced to Herr Friedrich von Twirlingkiller, your final opponent in Bergen City. His identity is mostly a mystery. All we know about him is that he may or may not have suffered injuries that led to his implants, and that he's a musician apparently. Might explain why the Sabaton song about the Red Baron opens up with Bach's Little Fugue. Also, he has wrestled one of the Death Watch announcers and left him with a broken lung. Given that the guy was a former champion, that's saying a lot for how formidable our Twisted Murderer can be. You know you're in for an amazing boss fight when the first thing this guy does is hurl a massive tornado at you that flips all the vehicles upside down. You have to get past these devastating currents and reach Twirlingkiller to give him a good smackdown. But still, don't let your guard down. This absolute behemoth of a man is no slouch in close combat. He can use those turbines to smack you across the road with heavy punches and blasts of twisters. It's really creative how he uses these winds, from propelling himself into the air to using every little object around him as weapons to hurl at you. Not hardcore enough for you? His power struggle has him holding you by the foot inside a tornado veil. All the while you gotta saw off each of his arms and use them as weapons of your own. This whole fight was an absolute spectacle, with incredible and intuitive use of the wind element, coupled with Deathwatch's fair share of stylistic visuals and humorous commentary. That said, I could certainly use fewer wind puns.
Wins the power. Air today, gone tomorrow.
Just for one of these elemental boss countdowns, I would love to have one that wasn't tied to puns.
Do I have to earn a living with this motley crew?
Kingdom Hearts 2 has screwed us again.
One day I will run out of clips for this. Today is not that day.
In the Kingdom Hearts franchise, each member of the iconic Organization 13 is affiliated with a different elemental attribute. Axel is fire, Demyx is water, Larxene is lightning, and Xaldin, the subject of today's list, is wind. Personality-wise, Xaldin is okay. I really feel that too many members of Organization 13 are just generic, evil, manipulative guy. And you can't really use the whole, they're supposed to be emotionally dead, when certain members were full of personality before the retcons. There's also the fact that
Praise the gameplay, not the story. Remember why you're here.
Don't waste my time!
Anyways, Xaldin, in addition to using wind, also wields several spears and performs jump attacks. Wait a minute, spears, jumping attacks, an affinity for wind? Xaldin was a dragoon this whole time! Is that a mother truck and Final Fantasy reference?
Right, there's Final Fantasy in this crossover. Sometimes I forget that.
If you don't know what you're doing, this fight is an absolute wall of difficulty. Xaldin's attacks cover a huge range, and approaching him is far from simple. Seriously, don't feel bad if Mickey has to help you a time. Or 10. I sure didn't. But once you get into the groove, this fight is fun. Stocking up on a whole bunch of jump commands and then doing them a million times in a row is immensely satisfying. Like all great bosses in Kingdom Hearts 2, Xaldin can be overcome through strategy and memorization, making him an easy number 2 spot. Or if that's too hard for you, you can just cheese him with Reflect like a total scrub.
When you really get down to it, scrub tactics and speedrun strats are pretty much the same thing.
Rayquaza from Pokemon, one of the best legendary Pokemon from Gen 3, armed with deadly attacks and an awesome dragon motif. Propeller Knight from Shovel Knight, Go Go Gadget Medieval Copter. Ashtarth, Bomberman 64, the second attack. He's literally titled the Lord of the Winds, and he's got the speed and wind power to prove it. Sonic from Sonic Rush. Where else are we gonna go toe-to-toe with the speedy blue hedgehog? During Blaze's story, anyway. Garuda is a summon that appears frequently throughout the Final Fantasy franchise, most often as a foe you must overcome. Garuda is usually depicted as a bird-like being, but more recent depictions have been a harpy-like woman. However, only one incarnation of this wind deity can take the top spot. Given this game's recent sky-high reputation, it almost seems fitting that Final Fantasy XIV's Garuda soars to the top of a countdown for its debut on this channel. In Final Fantasy XIV, Garuda is what is known as a primal, a deific being composed of ether summoned by the faith and prayers of their followers. To sustain itself, a primal must drain the land dry of ether. To make matters worse, the Lady of the Vortex is vicious and cruel. Her temper is legendary amongst those who worship her, the Ixal. But what makes Garuda worthy of the top spot for wind bosses? Well, for starters, to even get to fight Garuda, you must find a way to get an airship through a cocoon of gale force winds powerful enough to destroy all but the most heavily reinforced Magitech craft. Once inside, the true fight begins. Garuda locks the Warrior of Light in a small arena with even more powerful winds than those that cover the island she resides on. The base fight consists of her blowing powerful winds against the players in a few different configurations, either a concussive blast right in front of her, or a gale in her immediate area. All her attacks are powerful enough to destroy the rocky formations that players can hide behind to dodge some of her attacks. She also summons orbs of wind and feathers that can directly attack the stone pillars and must be destroyed before they are destroyed. As the fight progresses, she launches a major attack. If the pillars are gone before this point, prepare to be blown away. She then tightens the arena, and any who step into the whirlwind start sustaining heavy damage. After she continuously summons more orbs to attack the players while she herself does damage, but assuming you survive this long, the fight should just be about over. However, just like any good JRPG boss fight, this isn't even her final form. Garuda also comes with a hard mode fight and an extreme mode. Both additional fights come with more complex mechanics, a lot more damage, and enough hot air to put a politician to shame. The wind that burns damage over time on some of her attacks, the powerful gusts that can wipe entire parties, and the howling gales that can cleave solid stone. No other boss is so dedicated to this element, and that is why Garuda claims the top spot, easily blowing away the Okay, that's it!
Okay, that's the second to last straw! Yes, that's a reference to the next countdown.
Cut!
Hey everyone, this is Josh. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share the video around. Please check out my other social media like my Twitter, Twitch, and Tumblr. Check out my other channels such as Joshua Burner for reactions and other stuff, Dragon Fighter Gaming for tabletop, and Bob Equestria for cartoons. Consider checking below the video and donating to my Patreon, Streamlabs for my merchandise, or becoming a YouTube member. Thanks for watching.